So the student support team is really the student support team for just a little over a year. We work as advocates for students. We work as liaisons between academic department and here. We're really doing those typical Dean of Student Support students things until the pandemic. I think when you talk about stress and mental health, the transition to having your world pulled out from underneath you and not having time to process what had just happened, because it was March, coming back from spring break, half of the semester is left, which is your papers, your exams, your projects, your capstone things that you need to do. Like the university kept happening, and the academic side of the house was amazing, trying to figure out how to help people not feel that kind of stress. But we didn't want anyone to have to withdraw. We didn't have anyone to drop out. Students were relocated and they left their campus that had their library and their coffee shop and their Stoller steps and their friends that they could study with, the tutors that could be in that tutoring center, the writing center where you could drop in and see people. I think that made learning for a lot of people a different style. Was what they needed to do. So now accessing friends, tutors, finding a place to brainstorm with each other ended up being like we're doing, like on the computer like this. And that was harder for people to access. The academic side of the house started doing better about putting spaces out there that students could join. But it's not the same as texting your friend and showing up to have coffee on Stoller steps and going over the notes before class. Those things we really lost. So I think that was a stress. How do I learn in a different environment? One of the things that happens is people reach out to the ones they're closest to talk when they're having a hard time. So we know that young people may check with their friends before they might check with a family member. They may tell their friends things before they tell a family member. So if you're separated from them or put a layer or an obstacle between being able to just walk down the hall to chat with them to having to contact them, some students just started holding more things in. They weren't as open talking about things as they may have been. So I think that was another layer of stress for them. Students knew that they were good students because they'd been in this kind of education learning environment for years. If that environment got changed, and now instead of like staying after in office hours with the professor or bringing an apple for the teacher like we did in third grade, if you miss those kinds of things you're used to, and now you have to report to a schedule on a screen and learn remotely, and a lot of students, it's a different way to learn, and students started to lose their identity about being a student, about being a good student. When the academic side was very helpful with extensions or maybe GP and seeing and things like that, and all of a sudden those A's that you're used to seeing on your grades, they're not on there anymore. I don't know if I'm going to get an A. I don't get the feedback from the classroom. I think there was a lot of academic identity that really some students were struggling with. It's hard to learn a different way over time, but even learning a different way in an instant between March 13th and March 14th was pretty dramatic for everyone. So I think so identity issues were involved, transitional issues, self-esteem, self-worth, and then there's a lot of grief. There's a lot of loss. There were really so many losses during the pandemic, not only family members who were ill and lost their jobs, but just like losing your friends, losing your room, losing your campus. Those were all pretty significant things. You lost for students who lived on campus and even those who commuted, you really lost your home. And when we talk about major stressors in the human life, it's like we talk about death kind of thing, loss of a spouse, loss of a home, loss of a job. And when we looked at the pandemic, it wasn't a spouse, but your best friends, where you lived, how you worked as far as a student, all those were major things happening at once. Not one of them happening, but they all kind of collided.